Well, I'll start by welcoming everybody back. Thanks for coming. Quick update: Mark is sacked, so he won't be joining us anymore. Okay. He's actually in Singapore, so I'm going to do my best to fill his shoes. Can't make any promises. But yeah, welcome back. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to elders past and present. We've got a couple of speakers today, as per usual. Not as many as usual, so we're going to make sure there's more networking at the end. And also would like to say thank you to our sponsors who fund for all that food, which is delicious, and we are very grateful of them. So yeah, thanks guys. We have a few updates. The main one being that we now have a new name. I think Mark touched on this last week. And anyway, the rebrand is OzBlock AI, Australian Blockchain and AI Network, which is basically just reflective of the fact that a lot more of the blockchain projects, are utilizing AI and then vice versa. So it's basically representing that. Nothing much else is changing, but it's what we've already been doing over the last few weeks. So we've now got a name to show for it. As part of this, we have a new website, which is OzBlock AI, which we will be using to showcase more of the research, the projects. Mark has a manifesto on there, which will hopefully be up. Plus, we have a few more events and initiatives, which will be available on the website. So we've got dinners, which is basically a self-funded initiative where we'll give you a sign-up link if you're interested and you feel like you benefit from a small group and maybe some better food than Domino's. Definitely worth signing up there and putting in kind of what you do in the industry, what you want from your network, and we'll try and curate the best room for you guys. So that's a new thing. We'll see how it goes. Might be able to get some sponsors to back that one eventually. But yeah, there's a sign up link there, but it will also be available on the website. Also on the website, we have a competition from Kraken. They have just shipped their open source CLI. So they have a $1,000 prize pool for anyone that will use this and build either dashboards, bots, trading tools, using their CLI. And basically the winner within our community will be awarded $500. And obviously it trickles down. This basically just means that if you use agents like Claude, Cursor, Copilot, you can speak to it in natural language and even do things like, say, I guess, trade or purchase Sol if the price drops by 5% and it will execute. So that's pretty exciting, and we'll announce the winners in a few months' time. Another little thing from me, I'm working with some guys in London and we're building out a paddle league in London and Australia. The London League is starting this month and they do have already quite a good lineup in terms of crypto companies. So if you are a crypto company or in the industry, come see me after this and I'll take your details. Not 100% live yet, but yeah, if you have any interest in it, let me know. And then things from Mark that I've been told to repeat. He had the Claude community online meetup recently. I think there was about 600 attendees. It's online. He was representing New South Wales and Sydney. And obviously this is a really important meetup and networking group at the minute, given how prominent AI and particularly Claude is being in our lives and our work. We have the full recap. Oh, did not realize that was me. We have the full recap from last month on the website as well. And Mark is also working for the DECA AI working group. So he will be sharing insights from that going forward. So lots to kind of look out for. And like I said, all of this will be publicized on the new website going forward. Right. A little thing before I pass on to our speakers. I think most people are aware that we had quite a substantial hack recently. And I think it's just something important to touch on given kind of its nature. It was pretty different to any of the other ones we've seen previously, given that it wasn't really an issue with the code, it was more an issue with the configuration. So even though this code was audited, it all looked good, these hackers have obviously got more mature and more intelligent, and they were able to exploit basically the configuration of one of the bridges between two blockchains. Essentially, Calpdeo is a platform where you basically deposit your ETH and you earn yield. They did that, and in return, they get restate ETH. They then decided to move this ETH over to another blockchain using a bridge from layer 0. Layer 0, when it receives a message to transfer these tokens across, has a checker which lives on the server. They managed to exploit this server, so even though it's fed information it saw as true, this information was a lie, and they managed to basically compromise the backup servers so it couldn't really check if that information was legit or not. This then obviously had a catastrophic cascading effect because that money went through to Aave, where they borrowed or used a restate ETH as collateral, borrowed against it, and then obviously left with millions and millions of dollars. Aave then had all this bad collateral on their platform, so there was a mass kind of run from Aave, which I think everyone kind of felt within the DeFi community. So yeah, I think the main thing from that is audits check the code, but not the settings. The code was fine. I think this is something that we're going to have to look at going forward. Obviously, Calp responded very promptly, and the reason for this happening was because they only had one checker configuration, where if they had two checkers needed to sign that transaction, it would have failed. So I think, yeah, just something to keep an eye out, and obviously just a constant kind of key message to stay aware of. Anywho, I will stop yapping and pass on to David from Stammer Crypto, who is going to speak about everything going on there. Do you like?
Cheers, Lydia. Thank you. And thank you all for coming. Good to see you all again. Great round of applause. I think last time I was here, we were chatting about Stand with Crypto and what our goal is and what we were attempting to do. We were looking at the sort of gap in regulation in Australia and the lack of protections for consumers. Obviously, a lot has changed since then. We've got some government legislation that sort of regulates places like KuCoin, like Kraken, that hold your assets for you. And there's also a stablecoin framework that is sitting out for consultation at the moment. That's reasonably good, but there's some things that are worth changing. One thing that sort of been talking about that has resonated every single time that I've sort of interacted with the community here, interacted with the communities in Melbourne and Brisbane as well, is that the issue of debanking is still broadly prevalent in Australia, whether that be from unilateral closures of accounts, the inability to get settlement accounts as a business, which then obviously have flow-on effects in regards to whether you can get like an ASIC license or even comply with those appropriately, all the way down to just the fact that banks will constantly block your transactions if you're trying to buy some crypto, which is pretty out there, to be honest. Like, it's your money. It's pretty insane that they just have these blanket policies these days that say if you're interacting with this type of thing, look, we're going to freeze, we're going to pause, and if you want to do it in like large volume, we're just going to stop that. And the thing is, ultimately, this has been known for a really long time. In 2021, there was an inquiry and a bunch of recommendations were made. And the government said, these recommendations are fantastic. We accept them. We support them. But nothing has actually been done in a legislative like sort of side of things. Like nothing is actually required at this point in time. They say that they're working with the banks, that they're like like intaking a bunch of the data, but realistically, like that isn't happen. We haven't seen any reports on it, and we haven't sort of seen any slowdown of it. So, um, as standard with crypto, we're putting together a petition. The idea of this petition is to ensure that the government gets like full visibility of people that like truly do care about this, to try and push this conversation forward. The conversation hasn't moved. There hasn't been any action from the government to actually change this. And we just need to make it a little bit more visible. So we know that 4 million Australians use digital assets. We know that 3 of the 4 major banks have just blanket restrictions in regards to interacting with crypto. Um, and there aren't any like, yeah, legislative requirements to address this. So our plan for this campaign is sort of in 3 phases. We're going to have petitions. So at the moment, we've launched a petition on our website, which you can get from that QR code. Um, and it's just where we're trying to get the bulk of numbers that we can have. So this is like has our ability to go to a minister and say, hey, look, like heaps of people have this issue. They really care about this. Like you should care about it as well. It's an easy way to do it. It's on our website. We control it, and then so it's relatively simple to like sign up. We're also going to do a government petition. So there is such a thing as an official government petition on the APH website. Anyone who has dealt with these things before probably knows that they're kind of annoying and a little bit difficult. And when you apply to create one, it may take months before it's actually available. We have applied to create one. It is currently sitting with the committee. And we will get Oz DeFi, Oz Block AI, and the other communities in Australia to send it out once it's available, but honestly, they're sitting on their hands. So while that is unavailable, it'd be fantastic if people can sign up and sign the petition on our website so we can get the bulk of the numbers. The good thing about the government petition, though, is the amount of numbers that we require to get a minister response is only 50. So we'll probably get there. I really hope so. We launched the petition today on our side, last night, and we already have, I think, 600 signatures. It was at the All Things Blockchain Brisbane event last night. We're looking to try and get to roughly 5,000. So within 24 hours, we're already over 10%, which is awesome. And then we're going to continue this campaign throughout the next 6 months or so. We're going to, so phase 2 here is share your story. We're going to have a poll that will be something along the lines of, have you been debanked or had any transactions frozen by these banks? And we'll then be able to get like a bit of a league table of who blocks the most people in Australia. Relatively spicy and should be useful in Canberra. And it'll also allow you to share your story if you would like to provide your own sort of little story. So we can use that when we go to ministers as well. And then we will take these numbers, so the numbers from the petition, the numbers from the poll, and create a super easy to write to your MP thing. So you'll go on the website, it'll say you are from this electorate, and you'll say, I want to write to my MP, and it will create a physical letter through an automated process to go to your member of parliament's electorate. The reason why physical letters matter in Australia is because emails like often get blocked spam by government departments. We did one of these for the digital asset platform regulation. We got multiple replies. Congratulations if it was any of you who got a reply in this room. Zali Stegel wrote back and said, no, we support this. Like, thank you for letting it know it's not one of my highest priorities, but really glad to understand what is happening in your constituency and what my constituents care about. So it is getting through to MPs. I thought that was fantastic. Zali Stegel, you're a big electorate, lots of political involvement there. I'm sure she gets hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of interactions at any point in time. So that was really good. And she sent one of her advisors to the last Parliamentary Friends of Blockchain event in Canberra as well. So it's getting through. This does have value. And what we're asking for in that petition is a really, really simple thing. So when you do a petition, you ask the House to do something about it. And we're asking the House to do pretty simple things: stop the restrictions. So how can there possibly be legalized blanket restrictions between lawful services and uses? Like, how can a bank just decide, yeah, no, we're not even going to investigate whether this is okay. We just have this like blanket requirement for you to not be able to transfer this amount of money if we think it's involved with crypto. Legislate the requirement for collection of data and reporting on debanking transaction freezing. Um, Really obvious. How can we work out how big of a problem it is with if we have no data, if we have no reports? In every other country in the world, this is required. It's pretty crazy that the government said, "Oh yeah, we think that's a good idea," and then did nothing about it. And then to require the banks to provide explanations um, that are case specific, not just blanket excuses, and that are transparent before closing any account. Some banks have been doing better at this. I will say, like over the last 12 months or so, they've done a little bit of work, but not everybody is doing the same thing. And for anyone who has previously been debanked, there is still no ability to get an answer. So while they may be doing it now, and it doesn't sort of help anyone that's had this problem in the past. Um,
Are we naming and shaming them as well?
Naming and shaming the banks. I do want, when we do that poll and we get a have you been debanked or frozen, and the poll will say CBA, ANZ, NAB, Westpac, other. No. And my guess is the no button doesn't get clicked very often. So we'll have a bit of a leak table there. Sorry.
Now, is there still a limit on the amount that you can transfer into a crypto exchange?
Absolutely.
There is.
Yeah, so 3 or 4 major banks have this already.
It's the banks, right? This is the government.
No, that's a banking thing.
Then the banking.
Yeah, so 3 of the 4 major banks have a specific policy that is like, available and you can view it, that just say, no, you can't send more than X at any point in time or during a month or something like that. So they're all individual bank policies that, like, honestly is like pretty crazy that they're even allowed to do that.
Wow.
Does that answer your question? Yeah.
I thought there was a coordinated attack.
Um,
Like overseas.
Yes. So as in the difference between like choke point 2.0 in the US and here. No, unfortunately, or fortunately, the government is kind of a little bit ambivalent to this and hasn't sort of really turned their mind to it. So I would say it's neither malicious nor helpful. And that's what we're trying to move it towards, like a more helpful point of view. If, like, anyone in the room that works for a digital asset platform or something like that, a lawful business, like, you have a huge amount of requirements over you. You have like all of your AUSTRAC compliance requirements. If you have an AFSL, you have those. If you're going to get a DApp license, you have all of those as well. Like, that's pretty significant. There shouldn't be any issues with someone transferring funds to you. That seems specifically anti-competitive. And so that's like one of the things that we want to address with this. So it'd be awesome if you all could potentially sign the first petition. Especially keep an eye out for the official government petition when we eventually get that one approved and it's up on the website, and we'll make sure it gets sent out. But really appreciate that many of you have been affected by this. It is the one consistent conversation that I've had every single meetup over like the last 18 months since we launched. So it's really exciting to be able to do something about it now. We do have a path to achieving this as well. Those recommendations that were accepted by the government have been asked in Senate estimates multiple times by some senators that we do work with. Like, we try and get them to like continue to keep this conversation alive. We got an amendment proposed to the digital asset platform bill to include some changes to debanking. Although that did not get passed when the bill got passed, it was still supported by the opposition and it was put up. I think it was Amendment 3897. If anyone wants to have a look at it, if I've got it on the top of my head, but you can look at it in the full bill thing. So there is visibility of this. All that we have to do is get the government to say to Treasury, hey, you have all of these recommendations under your desk. How about we do a little bit more than like make them voluntary? How about we actually report on them? How about we do what the UK is doing or what the US is doing? Not saying that this will entirely fix the problem, but we've got to take a first step. Yeah, so thank you all.
Thank you very much, David. Yeah, so definitely important if you do have the time to sign the petition, which we definitely all do.
It's like $3.
Yeah, you can literally get an AI bot to do it, I'm sure. Anywho, moving on, we've got Arturo coming up to give us a blockchain and AI update. Very glad he's here because he's much more natural at speaking than me.
How many of you have ever taken a loan? A loan? A few, right? So for every loan that you have usually taken, your name is probably going to appear in one of these big Excel sheets. And that Excel sheet is it's captured, it's generated by the person that has given you that loan, and it moves around a bunch of different places. So you start up here, and then you end up in an email being sent to someone. It's like, please verify this. So I just want to go back to this image here. That's literally the way that we've been doing private credit and finance overall for the past, I don't know, since Excel, 30 years. Doesn't look particularly natural, does it? But that's effectively what happens. 200 and more than $200 billion worth of private credit in Australia alone per year. So it's a lot of cells. And just imagine how much it actually costs to get each one of those cells correct. Because it's not just about creating that Excel sheet, it's that I send that Excel sheet via email to someone else. They then take 2 sheets and then they check, are these cells correct? And that's what they do on a daily basis for $200 billion every year, right? It sounds pretty ridiculous. But at the same time, like that's what we do. Now, all of this effectively starts from a conversation, a negotiation. I need to borrow some money. Somebody else has money. And that conversation then leads to passing through this entire really long workflow where my name ends up with one of those Excel sheets. And, you know, I'm not kidding when I'm saying that several $100 million of IT investment is put into solving these problems across banks and non-bank lenders and so forth. So it's basically wasted money. Sure, people get employed and they do that work, but there's no real added value to the overall economy when you're effectively just dealing with Excel sheets, right? So I started off I mentioned that one of the big things with the starting points is effectively a conversation. So imagine, on the other hand, if, oh, that's really hard to say.
It's better than that one.
Look over there. So we have a chat, you know, it's Slack, it's WhatsApp, it's whatever you want it to be. And this chat is what we think effectively has killed SaaS. It's AI. I would argue that AI did not kill SaaS. SaaS hasn't really died. I mean, most of the revenue coming from AI companies is SaaS. What AI did kill was that Excel sheet. It was the CRM that you know, we've been working on for a very long time, and the reason it looks the way it does is because some person in San Francisco thought that this, you know, this is the right button, and it's the right button for the average of our target audience. That's what AI killed. Like that's effectively SaaS. AI killed it because it is able to talk to you as a person and understand what you want and deliver in an emerging way what you need. That's not the traditional UX pattern. The traditional UX pattern is you are an average individual within a pool, and you're just going to like whatever it is that we deliver to you, and that's it. That doesn't really need to be the case. So if we go back to what the non-SaaS old version of the loan process looks like, it's actually much, much more human. So I am here in a chat room with a friend. I can see this.
Heel phrase.
I don't have many friends, so I'm just lying right now. Just roll with me. Make me feel good. Well, this is what I tell my friends. I need a loan. And he's like, oh, okay. Again. I need 100K AUD. Okay, fine. For how long? 1 month. Okay, 10% rate. There we go. So we've had a conversation. We've agreed to something. This happens every single time there is a transaction. Literally, most transactions happen through WhatsApp or through a chat. Then we take that, our interpretation of what we have agreed to, and we tell our lawyers, draft this thing up. We then agree in legalese, and then we end up as being part of one of those Excel sheets in the life cycle management of all these different deals. Now, here's what could happen, where you've already had the conversation. You have already kind of agreed, but you need to transform that into a structure. That's what legalese is. It's a structure. Now, AI can actually transform that into structure. It's really, really good at doing it if you know how to make that happen. And what just happened here was that conversation passed through pretty advanced linguistic analysis that identified structure in the language, that then mapped into legal structure, that then created this, what looks like a very simple structured representation of the loan. But AI can do this for not only loans, it can do this for almost any type of structured transaction. And that's where it becomes really, really interesting, because we're not only collapsing the legalese with the execution, we're collapsing the negotiation with the execution. How many times have you ever been in a deal where you agree on intent, but it doesn't happen? It doesn't happen because it takes too long, because when you're actually documenting what you have agreed in terms of intent, people start differing because they're interpreting the situation differently. So addressing all of those things from the very beginning, at the very origin of that transaction, is effectively what makes the difference between closing a deal and losing that deal. And AI is incredible at that. But we need more than AI. We actually need to have a way in which we can translate that into a transaction. And that transaction is effectively a blockchain transaction, where this is a slightly more sophisticated structured loan with a number of coupons, number of redemptions. But when I look at this thing through this UX, I'm not only looking at what I have booked in my system as being the loan. It is actually the loan. It is the thing that both people agree to, and they're looking at one source of truth. So all of a sudden, that Excel sheet that we were looking at before, this thing is not necessary, because this thing is actually just a communication method. It's me saying, these are all the different loans that I have. I'm sending it to you. You check that it's right, because we're not living in the same worlds. This is the same world. And that changes everything. Not only does it compress the conversation, it actually compresses the execution. Now, I want to show you something that is a little bit bigger than these two things. And it's that I'm taking you through a pretty long journey, starting from conversation to AI to blockchain. But within the blockchain space, almost everybody talks about the value of tokenization being collateral mobility. Now, what most people miss in that story is that an asset is not collateral until it is used as collateral. So I have a car. I can use that car as a security in a loan. And it's when I use that car as a security in a loan that it actually turns into collateral. Otherwise, it's just a car. So when blockchains and protocols and so forth talk about, well, look, I can move this asset, I'm moving collateral, that's not it. What is it is that I actually have an asset. And I want to utilize that asset. So I click here and I say, I want to use it. I'll call it repo 1. And I've already agreed terms with someone else. The asset is the structured loan that I'm using as collateral. I need $100 today. I promise to pay back $110 at this future date. I'm ready to go. What the lender sees on this side, or the counterpart, is that here's the repo. These are the terms. This is what I agreed to. I'm good to go. I'll take on that trade. Now, that structured loan moved from just being one of the assets that I could do stuff with to being locked as collateral in a structured loan with a repurchase. That repurchase is $110. And for that, I received 100 as I agreed. And on this side, I actually see that structured loan as a contingent asset because I don't know what I'm getting. I don't know if I'm getting the structured loan or if I'm getting the payment back. I'm getting one of those. Now, this is a relatively standard thing to do, but it's only standard when there is a lot of money at stake. It's actually a really, really powerful mechanism. It's a powerful tool. We've used it for a long time, but the reason it's so difficult to use, it's because it's expensive. And the reason why it's expensive is because I need to have a third party. I need to have someone that I'm giving this collateral to. And they then need to check, is this actually what they've agreed to? How long am I holding this? Who am I giving it to? Under what condition? What are the ifs, buts, and all these different things that just make the unit economics of these transactions really, really, really high. But this is something that's super valuable for everyone. I literally could use that for a $1,000 deal. That's actually what Aave and the likes have done to a certain extent. This is on a peer-to-peer basis. It's not on a pooled basis, and the pricing is very different. Furthermore, this is done under privacy-preserving ZK proofs, which is quite important when you're dealing in private loans because you don't want everybody to see how much your loan is for, right? But what I wanted to show you was that when you're out there building solutions and building apps, I think that it's really important to kind of go back to the very basics of why you're doing what you're doing and almost identify the entire value chain of why does this thing that you're solving start happening from the very beginning. So we went through Project Acacia and solved the repo problem, which is what I ended up showing. But the reason why that repo problem exists from the very beginning is because somebody logged onto a website and saw that button that was perfect for the average person, that was clicked, and then that generated that Excel sheet that is then moving back and forth, and it's costing the economy millions of dollars every single year when it doesn't need to, because the tooling that we have today allows us to effectively compress all of that into connecting two people, one deal, and automated execution. So I'm happy to get any questions or any thoughts now or later. Austin.
Hey, Arthur, thank you for the speech. Very exciting indeed. Uh, would you maybe touch on some of the less optimistic and heavy part scenarios here? You touched on chatbot that are probabilistic at best with hallucination. You touched on Excel, which is actually a very deterministic, is actually can actually calculate alone. You touched on a repo that only works in a large institutional 100 million plus that reverse the beamer. We touched on collateral validation that only works in fully cleared assets and not really in a real world, whereas collateralized home is actually has no collateral unless you can touch it to the real world assets. Would you maybe touch on some of the the pitfalls of the maybe entering some of the hype that is prevalent in these conversations? Right?
I'll start backwards. So when you're tokenizing a loan, you could think that you are creating. So you're an originator. You have your own systems, and many of these originators are very, very good systems. They will take those loans and put them into their SQL database, and then when they document the loan, they'll create an ID for that loan. That ID is something that is just an ID in their database. To create a loan on chain is actually not much more difficult. It's not more difficult than just minting an NFT that represents that loan. And when you create the legal documentation, you actually reference the blockchain, the smart contract, and the token ID. All of a sudden, that becomes a native loan. There's a lot of nuance, of course, but the second that you do that, you are taking TradFi through the journey of, let me not say tokenization, but you're taking TradFi through the journey of communicating the same way that they've always done, but through a new technology. So it's not about working harder, it's just working smarter. We're not changing legal structures. We're not doing any of those different things. Now, all of a sudden, that means that that trustee, the independent party that is actually meant to verify all of these different Excel sheets, they continue doing what they do, but they just look at events on a blockchain, which are actually much safer than movements back and forth with regards to Excel sheets. So we're not encoding every single event at a smart contract level. We're simply using the blockchain as a communication mechanism. That means that the edge cases are handled just in the same way as they're always handled. When it comes to AI, here's the difference between vibe coding, and AI is really, really dangerous from this point of view. It gives people a lot of confidence when they shouldn't. You can get to a really nice demo really fast, but unless you have the SME of what is being done, you can't judge when the thing is wrong. So when you go back and you mention the probabilistic nature of AI and then representing structures that are highly deterministic because there's legal bearing behind that, what I can share is that there's been a lot of work in terms of knowing how to properly take a document, a conversation, anything that that is natural language, and learn how to represent that through, as I mentioned before. I'm trying to show a better image here. Actually, let me just do something to make that point. Sorry. Okay. So this is what happens in the background. In this session, we're doing reasoning, multi-agent reasoning around a topic. I can change the different personas and the agents and so forth because I maybe want to have different types of skill sets when I'm analyzing a specific problem. But what I want to show you is what happens in the background. What happens in the background is that all of the information is not only extracted and chunked and is searched through semantic search. What happens is that all of this information is literally analyzed linguistically to understand the structure of what is being generated. We're extracting all of the different entities, but we're not only extracting entities in terms of GraphRag, we're also applying coherence checks in terms of the grammar around the vocabulary that describes what is effectively a graph. So what we do is that we take that deterministic vocabulary that we can grammar check and achieve coherence in and map that to predetermined templates from a legal point of view that ensure that if we say that this is a loan, it is because we can deterministically prove that the fields fit into the loan and therefore we get the right term sheet and also the right execution on chain. So uh, thank you. It was a really, really, really valuable question because there's a lot of things that happen in the back end when one wants to get things like these right. Yeah, there it is.
Any more questions? Okay.
Thank you. I'll open up this again. Maybe you'll.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Arturo, for giving our reports. Thank you.
Maybe should we say something about the kelp?
We should.
Yeah.
I'll pass it on to you quickly.
Okay. I did want to say something.
Yeah.
What you mentioned was completely correct, and I think that one of the things that we haven't spoken about enough within the community is what Arbitrum did. So Arbitrum solved the problem. It was 12 signatures that reversed or transferred back all of the stolen ETH, which is a really, really good thing. But it also triggers a bunch of questions with regards to legality and who has access to funds. Is it actually a commodity if you can arbitrarily have 12 people sign and move things within the state machine that is meant to be the source of truth that is immutable?
Would it be fair to say this is kind of the argument, centralized v decentralized?
Yes, I think that I think that it's clear. It's always been very clear that L2s are less decentralized, let's say. But as soon as you start to see that straight up, then you need to start asking questions about if you engage with a bank where they have control, there are layers of policy that need to be followed and teams that block each other from doing things, which is quite frustrating. But they also make the solution to these problems, let's call it more robust.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that one of the questions that are going to continue going forward now is, well, who are these 12 people and what is the actual process around moving several $100 billion worth of assets or having control over that? So I think that that's also something worth considering when one is developing solutions on top of these blockchains. Again, it's not anything negative about Arbitrum or L2s that operate in the same way, but it's just that one needs to consider the ramifications of events like these.
I think, yeah, it's very fair to say that in the short term, it definitely instilled a lot of trust and a lot of faith. But yeah, the argument is in the long term, if those policies will instill a lot of trust and a lot of faith, if we don't know who's controlling them and who's creating them. So yeah, it's a very good point. Thank you, Arturo. Question?
For Arturo, has to go back that. Would you kindly speculate as to who that actor was that did that kind of thing? Like,
Oh, it's definitely the North Koreans. I have no idea.
But it's got to be a very smart hack to understand the system that well. Can you just say, "Oh, I IoT it," but not really.
Look, I've spoken to a number of people that have actually told me that bug bounties are going through the roof because AI finds bugs. And interestingly, many of these bugs are real bugs. It's just that they're not vulnerabilities because of the way in which systems, for example, have been deployed. And that's a standard story across many of the decentralized protocols. So it is incredible the type of bugs that AI can find. Obviously, it wasn't AI on its own that chose to go and do this thing. It was someone that was using it, perhaps. But yeah, that was just a side questing to the answer that I actually don't know.
You may never know. But yeah, no, thanks for bringing it all up. And it's definitely a very important topic of conversation at the moment. But we will move on to Tim, who will be joining us on the stage now to talk about slophaganda. So yeah, definitely leading more into our AI space here. I'll try and get this going for you. Let you start introing and get your slides out.
Okay. First thing is, normally this is the first time I've done a talk on slophaganda. So normally I do triple somersaults and triple twists and all sorts of stuff. But when Deepfake actually said to me, go and play squash last weekend, and I've completely knackered my back. So if I'm grimacing, I apologize. But I think slophaganda is really important. And anybody recognize the font of where this comes from? Dr. Strangelove. Who's a fan of Dr. Strangelove? Okay, a few nerds. I love that film. Such a great satirical film. But the issue that is really important is that the film came out in about 1962, and it was all about the time of the Cold War, and it was all about nuclear bombs. And that was when the issue of the apocalypse was really being talked about. And so it's sort of, when I started sort of putting this together for the talk today, I thought I really want to explore this through that lens, because we're actually in danger of going through a trust apocalypse. And when we look at deep fakes and other areas relating to trust, the way AI is actually going forward, it's ramping this up. And so I've only got 10 minutes. This is normally a talk that is over an hour. So I have condensed it down to 10 minutes. So I'm going to try and really whistle through it. But basically, I mean, slophaganda is a word that was actually academia about 12 months ago. And it's where you've got AI slop meets propaganda. Now that becomes really interesting when we talk about these guys. How many of you have seen the videos that have come out from the Iranians that are the Lego lookalikes? How many of you have seen them? Keep your hands up if you think they're funny. Right, now that's the problem, right? We've all put our hands up and we've all kept it up. And the issue is, these things, if you think of South Park and you think of late night comics, they speak truth to power through comedy. And the normal media at the moment are just pandering and are just afraid to actually speak truth to power. And so what's going on with the slophaganda is that they're funny, they're actually engaging, and from a cultural point of view, they're absolutely amazing because they're being shared right across party lines, left wing and right wing. And even there's one of the slophaganda videos is called "Trump is a Loser," and there's a really great beat behind it, I have to say, and it's playing in a few clubs in New York now, allegedly. All right, now, yeah. And also just the pure detail as well. If you look at the right hand in that bottom left-hand corner, the attention to detail on Trump's right hand with the discoloration, they are supreme. I shouldn't be saying that because we're trying to fight deepfakes, but you've got to give them credit. And the BBC, if you're interested, have done a video with the guys who've actually produced the videos, and it's a bit surreal. It's worth watching, but there are some. Let's just say there are some voices that interject. That's probably the best way of saying it. But the issue is the real battlefield is actually around trust, and trust is a big problem that we're going to be facing. And even back in the Greek tragedy days, I mean, in war, truth is the first casualty, and that's so true. If you think of any war that's gone on, even as it's going through now, you know, what is true and what's not true, nobody really knows, and that's a real problem. And you know, the deep fakes that we're seeing, these are coming through a whole variety of different lenses. In terms of they're being used in corporate scams, they're being used in a whole variety of political scams. There are investment scams going on. They're getting worse and worse. I mean, and as the technology gets better and better, this problem is going to get worse and worse and worse. And the problem is they're being used as weapons to create doubt. And it's the doubt part which is the danger. So how come we're so vulnerable to all this? And it all comes down fundamentally to evolution. Because back in the savannah, 200,000 years ago, when we were all wandering across the savannah, looking into the distance, you can just about see in the shadows there's a lion. Now, if we saw that lion in real life, right, straight away, there would be a trigger that, you know, we would just completely react, because it would go through to our amygdala, and it would be the flight or fight, or we'd be out of the gene pool. Right? And so the issue is that even a few years ago, when you see videos, you actually, it's the cost of doing a fake video for even 5 years ago. If you think of the production values, filming it, getting edited, all that sort of stuff, you think, why would people go to the bother? But now they are actually going to the bother because it's so cheap. And so the issue is that our biology even now is running on this Stone Age firmware. And even from an evolutionary perspective, we haven't actually progressed. Not that much, if we look at it in evolutionary terms. But synthetic media actually makes us doubt issues. And that's the biggest issue. And it's very much because we're in this age of algorithmic warfare that's going on. And seeing is no longer believing. I mean, how many of you, if you see a video that actually comes up, how many of you, what's the first question you ask? Do you actually say, oh, that's interesting? Or do you say, is that real? How many of you say, is that real? Right. Okay, so about 70% of people. That says something, doesn't it? Right? If you think 5 years ago, and I mean, even if you think, and I'm debating whether I write an article on this or not, but if you look at the Epstein files, and that's why it's got some contentious issues, everything in the Epstein files has come from 20 years ago. So AI wasn't around at those times. So Trump's normal de facto defense is, oh, it's fake, it's AI. If this was 20 years forward, imagine what a field day, how the conversation would differ. Right? So these are the issues that we're facing. And so it's really, there's also this thing called the squid effect that I quite like. Now, squids don't defeat predators directly. They don't fight. They just squirt ink. And it's mucus, they spray it in the water, and essentially the water turns murky and nobody sees clearly. And if you think of that in relation to elections, right? And this is where things will start to get really challenging, in my opinion, especially when it comes to the midterms in the US this year in November. You can just imagine how many deep fakes are going to be going on. I mean, we're talking with some international parties about trying to help. We've got an LOI with an international party that we're just finalizing negotiations on. But the issue is, as you get closer to the end of the election cycle, deep fakes come out of the woodwork. And so it's very much that in any election, it's the swing voters, the 10 to 12% that actually determine who's going to win an election. Now, if you imagine a situation that both left and right put out deep fakes, the independents are going to say, they're just as bad as each other. I'm not going to bother voting. And if that happens, that's going to favor the incumbents. So the deep fake issue, the propaganda, don't get me wrong, the slopaganda is great. It's really interesting and it's fascinating, but it's come from a terrorist regime. But it's changing the way we are actually viewing a whole lot of different areas. And so you think, okay, the detection, all the detection devices, all the software, it's going to be our savior. AI is going to save the day. Let me introduce you to the generative adversarial networks. How many of you heard of generative adversarial networks? Okay, 4, 5, okay. Well, the idea is that AI is improving exponentially, as we know. We just see it from what's going on. The actual GANs themselves had 2 AIs battling out against each other, where one actually forges the video, creates the fake video. The detector then gives the assessment. And algorithmically, both sides of those equations are happening in milliseconds. And you get to the point where ultimately they're constantly, when the other detects, you get to the point, where's my loss? That's it, until there's zero detection. And so what does that say? If you're actually seeing a deepfake video that's gone through this particular structure, you've got a video that is going to be imperceptible to the actual detectors. So all this stuff we've been talking about, and I appreciate this is just 10 minutes, so I'm probably painting a doomsday scenario, which is not what this is about by any means. But it's a really important issue to really understand. And geopolitics is driving a heck of a lot of this as well. When we look at what's going on, globally, obviously the US and China is a big narrative. It's the issue. The US wants to beat China, especially, I guess, just where the US is right now. There's obsession over AGI, getting first to the artificial general intelligence and the US is definitely, their position is win at all costs. So where are the guardrails? So when you think about the trust apocalypse, we're kind of heading towards that if we're not careful. Now, I don't want to be negative about this at all, far from it. That's not what this is about. So it's about how do we avoid the trust of the apocalypse? Because I did say at the very beginning, it was sort of how I come to love the trust apocalypse. I don't quite love it yet, but I'm getting closer. Oops, what's going on there? Sorry. Oh, yes. Because the facts that we know is that AI will become more powerful. We know that's already happening. But can trust evolve faster than deception? And at the moment, where are the guardrails? Where is the conversation about regulation? Where's the conversation about safety? Where's the conversation about regulations? We're working with the E-Safety Commissioner here in Sydney, and we're working on, we're partnering with UTS startups and the Safety Commissioner, and we're trying to put together a hackathon linked into e-safety, trust, and responsible AI. Because everybody sort of recognizes that it's a problem, but nobody's doing anything about it. Now, in fairness, the E-Safety Commission themselves are the ones that actually put in place banning social media for under 16s. Now, that's been taken up in Denmark, Czechoslovakia. They're talking about the UK, a number of different places. So the good news is there are hints of the architecture of trust being designed. Now, we're a part of that. We're a cog. We're a small cog in a very big wheel. There are things like there's digital watermarking. There are structures linking into blockchain, and very much that's the element that we're trying to bring to the fore. And I mean, is anybody going to Sunrise tomorrow? The Blackbird Investments? Anybody else? Couple. Okay, I'll see you there. But we're talking to a few people there, linking into the media who are really interested in what we're trying to do. But the architecture of trust is being built, but it's what's coming in the back end is just swamping us. And if the water becomes too muddy too quickly, eventually nobody will see the truth at all. And of course, that is why, amongst all that muck, there's actually a little book that I've got coming out next week, which is The Architecture of Trust. It's got the digital version's coming out on the 6th of May. And what I'm doing is literally, I mean, it's coming out on Amazon. There's a paperback version that's going to be coming out. But if you want to actually sign up and actually get a copy of the book, really welcome to. Until the first day of launch, it's going to be 99 cents rather than 12 cents on the day of launch. So if it's something that's of interest, this goes into it in a lot more depth. It'll just touch the surface. But sorry, yes.
Can people trust the reviews?
Yeah, I know, of course. I know. I did put the little prayer there just as a sign if you're really interested in trying to support. But it's I've taken a lot of time to think about this as well. And this is basically from our point of view as being used as a bit of thought leadership to get into the likes of TikTok, to get into Meta and into the social platforms, so that we can actually detect, confirm, and take down high stakes problems, deepfakes. And that's what we're working on. So thank you to Lydia and the team for letting us see. I mean, I'm happy to take questions if you're happy. A couple of questions.
I would be interested to know how much
Slopaganda.
we're actually consuming on a daily basis.
I have to say, it's a really good question, because if you look at Slopaganda itself, because it's parody and because it's satire, and they haven't sort of gone to the situation of showing kids being blown up in a school and that type of stuff, it's been very much that parody and satire type of area. It's really hard to justify taking it down, because there are other people that are creating the same content, same style of content, but putting it out under their own name. So they're reinforcing the messaging of what's actually coming out of Iran, right? But so in answer to your question, for example, Lego themselves, this is great advertising for Lego. And they've been very quiet, because they could theoretically issue a DMCA notice, a copyright action, say, take those down. And they haven't. They're working allegedly behind the scenes with the government to get things to be seen to be done. But in answer to your question, it's really hard to monitor, because YouTube are taking down the official ones, but there are lots of them that are just are lookalikes, because the production values are so strong, and they're turning them round within 12 hours of news coming out, that people in standard population say, has Hexeth done that? Has Trump really done that? And then they're coming out with this thing, oh yeah, they are, and a lot of people actually take truth from humor. But it's a really good question. It's really hard to manage.
Those the letters are not deepfakes. They're not real. I don't think anybody would believe that they are real either. So how do you frame them?
It's slopaganda, because it's AI slop, where you're making a lot of AI-based product that just looks very similar, but it's got a very deep message to it, and it's pure psyops. I mean, the Iranians, they, just as an indication, I played a lot of chess, and the Iranians are the ones that have really, even though it was started in India, it was actually an Iranian game or a Persian game, and Shahmate, which is checkmate, is death to the king in the language. So, it's a very valid point you made, that they're fake, and everybody recognizes they're fake, but the way that they're being deployed is it's emotionally intelligent, and that's what I think is dangerous.
So it's also the music.
Oh, the music's great, but it hits the cultural narrative. It hits the right tone, and people on the left and the right are sharing, and that's the crazy thing. It's a screwed up world the best of times, but Go on, Rick. Okay.
So, say the slide back by one, please.
Sure.
I just want to see another slide. The previous slide, head up. Yeah, that guy there. And who was that guy there?
Oh, he's an ugly bastard.
Is that you?
Yeah, it is. Yes, that's one of my PR shots from 20 years ago.
I know me too wrong, but that could be Daniel Craig.
Oh, right, okay. I think it was really good lighting, and I think I must have paid the photographer a shitload.
Yeah, I'm not being blunt, but that's a good-looking guy who could be Chris Hemsworth, Daniel Craig, and respect.
No, hey, I mean, I'm going to go with what they were able to create in Photoshop at the time. I'm happy with that.
So there's already doubt there. I mean,
Sure, oh, sure. Oh,
And then came on a second ago and go, oh, somewhere for 2 weeks.
no, that's
The guy with the microphone in front of you was the best. Yeah.
no, it's all good. It's all good.
Really just based on that.
Well, there you go then. Yeah, well, I'll take you off the list for buying 5 then, right?
Let Tim leave. Good looking.
All right, good. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Tim. There's a great message nonetheless, and there's no doubt about that. So thank you for sharing that one with us, and thank you all for coming and putting up with me whilst Mark is away. He'll be back next month, so the jokes will resume. And yeah, enjoy the rest of the night. Carry on eating, networking, drinking, and yeah, get home safe. Thank you.